Here, mute. Here. Mute. Yeah, mute. Mute. Then they can't hear you.
Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to get started here in about 8 minutes, but if you could, while we're waiting, please enter your full name in the chat box along with the organization you're representing. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We're just going to give it a couple extra minutes to make sure we get all the stragglers in here before we get started. Again, thank you for your time. And if you have a chance, please type your name and your agency in the chat box. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the City of Montgomery's public hearing for our program year 2022 Community Development Block Grant, our Cdbg application process, our home funding, and our Emergency Solutions Grant funding. To get started, we want to introduce our staff to you guys. I'm gonna put us on. Yep. Just making sure you guys can see us right quick. Okay, there we go. I'm Susan Hill, and I'm the Cdbg Program Manager. And Desmond Wilson is our Director of Community Development Department. Paul Van Fleet is our home program manager. He manages all of our home projects. Brenda Brown, raise your hand. Brenda is our finance person here. She handles all the bills. She's the money lady. We have Sherry Lusby. She's a new staff person. She is our Emergency Solutions Grant program manager. Gary Sharp, he works with me on the CDBG team. He's a grants coordinator. And Adina Kramer is our city development tech, and she works with all of us on all of our programs. And Lakita Davis, you can see her. She is Desmond's assistant. So we just wanted to introduce you guys before we get started on our slideshow. We're going to put ourselves back in space for a few minutes. Okay, just a reminder for everyone that is new joining, if you will comment in the chat box your name and the organization that you're representing, so we can keep a track of our sign-in sheet, our virtual sign-in sheet for record-keeping purposes. We appreciate it. If you can go to the next slide. The purpose of our public hearing is that we have to hold a minimum of 2 hearings during our program year. The first one is normally associated with our consolidated and action plan. And we'll get into all of the reasons for that. It's mandated by HUD that we hold 2 hearings a year. The second public hearing that we have every year is to report on our progress during the program year. We call it our CAPER public hearing, only because the CAPER is our Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. We turn that document into HUD every year with accomplishments of all of our projects during the year. So we have to hold those 2 hearings at separate times of the year. And our second public hearing is normally around September or October. We just had one last month for our second hearing. And we are required to take comments during the comment period for any of our documents that are being sent to HUD and for all of our public hearings. Can you move that box over? And then our announcements for our public hearings are always advertised in the Montgomery Advertiser newspaper and posted on the city's Department of Community Development webpage. And if you've ever been on the city's website, it's montgomeryal.gov. And from there you go to City Government tab and scroll down to our Community Development Department. And then that will take you to the page where we have 3 divisions listed there, and Community Development is one of the divisions listed. If you click on that tab, then it will pull up all of our documents that we have advertised publicly. Our applications that we're going over today will be on that webpage that I just mentioned. We've taken all of our old applications off the webpage. If you have been emailed an old application or you've retrieved an old application from our webpage, please make sure that you delete those and you grab the new ones that are up. They are available. If you have a separate screen and you want to pull those up and look at those at some point, you can while we're in our public hearing. But just make sure that you delete all of the ones that have been emailed to you or retrieved from our web. The Community Development Block Grant application has changed a little bit. There's some minor revisions, and the other applications have some revisions as well. So just make sure when you start bringing your applications, you bring the correct copy. Oh, in addition to the advertisement going in the Montgomery Advertiser, we also keep a master list of those that have been interested in the past and currently, and you also receive an email as a courtesy from us. It's not recommended or not required by HUD, but we do that to make sure that everyone that has been interested in our application process gets all of our public hearing notices or any meetings that are scheduled in the communities. That information also goes out through our public hearing mailing list. Anytime your email bounces back to the city as undeliverable, we remove you from the list. So if you change email addresses and you got this notice and it changes, then you need to call and let us know so we can make sure to put your current email back on our list. Okay. The public hearing is conducted to ensure citizen participation in all 3 of our programs listed. The purpose of the hearing is to meet the requirements set forth in Section 104 of the 1974 Housing and Community Development Act as amended, and 24 CFR 91 for citizen participation into our public process. Just a little bit of background information about our programs. There are 3 that are funded by HUD to the city of Montgomery, and it's the Community Development Block Grant, our Cdbg program, our Home Investment Partnerships Act, and that's under the Home Program, and our Emergency Solution Grant, ESG for short. The ESG program deals with population, homeless population, and those funds are designed for activities it's just through our homeless shelter or organizations that
I think we lost you, or at least I did. I can't hear anymore.
Neither can I.
Can you guys hear us?
Yes, you're back on my. I can hear you now again.
Okay. We'll get more into the low mod income area when we get into the Cdbg application. But if you have a project that benefits an area that is primarily, it has to be a low income area, and it has to be primarily residential in order for you to fund a low mod area project. We accomplish this mission by establishing partnerships with local and area nonprofits, for-profits, our community housing development organizations, CHODOs, contractors, faith-based organizations, lenders, and other charity organizations. This slide is to give you guys an at-a-glance look of the program funding for years past. And you can just look and see that, for instance, in 2019, our Cdbg, what we received $1.6 million there. It was $90,000 less than the previous year, and so on and so forth for all of our organizations. During our program 2020 and 2021, we received CARES Act funding. Our Cdbg CV was our round 1, and our CV3 was round 2 for CARES Act funding. All of those funds for Cdbg and ESG were spent on COVID, were awarded to agencies that had COVID-related activities. So as you can see, we got a pretty good amount of money. And Cdbg, all of our organizations have done well under Cdbg spending those funds. And we'll probably be wrapped up spending all of the Cdbg CV money sometime mid next year. So for 2021, you can see that Cdbg received 1.7 million, home 907,000, and we did not receive any ESG funding for 2021 because we received a lot of CARES Act funding for the homeless population under the CARES Act. And because we received a lot of those funds under ESG, HUD did not award the city any ESG funding for 2021. We do expect, however, in 2022 to receive our level funding of what we received in that program for the years prior that we were funded. So we have some organizations out there that are fighting in Washington to receive more CDBG funds. And we hope to get a slight increase for our 2022 year. We don't know how much that is. We never know until Congress announces that award, and it's usually around the first of the year. Okay. Our 2022 action plan will be submitted. It will be the third year of our current 5-year plan. Our 5-year con plan runs from PY 2020 to 2024. We'll be getting ready shortly in the next year or so, starting on our next 5-year plan. A con plan takes about 2 years to really plan and have community meetings. It sets our goals and objectives in place for all of our annual action plans during that con plan year. And so this next action plan for 2022 will be our third year. Our comp plan requires an annual action plan each year. We propose activities to be submitted to HUD 60 days after the official notice of allocations. In years past, our action plan was always due on March 17th of every year. HUD developed a strategy to have us wait until they announce our allocations to keep all of the entitlements across the nation from going back and revising their plan. So they just decided to wait until they announce our allocations, and then 60 days after the date of their notice is when our plan is due. We never know when that date is going to come, but we just kind of have to always be prepared, the first part of the year to submit our plan. An overview of the CDBG program. We have 3 national objectives, and your project must meet one of these 3 national objectives. Benefit low to moderate income individuals and families in the city limits of Montgomery, not the county limits, but the city limits of Montgomery. Eliminate slumber blight or meet an urgent need. And that's usually in disastrous or catastrophic situations like hurricanes, tornadoes. We've only used that national objective one time, and that was when Katrina came along. And that was to receive funding to help those that were displaced from Hurricane Katrina. The overall benefit of the CDBG program must be a 70% benefit. So all of our projects that combined must at least benefit 70% of low to moderate income individuals in the city of Montgomery. Some eligible activities under that program is acquisition, disposition of real property, public facilities and improvements. That can include sanitary sewer, street, curb, gutter that is normally either tied to a low mod area or low income housing. It can also include public facilities such as community centers or a public facility that is occupied or made available to individuals during normal business times and normal days of the week. Doesn't necessarily have to include the Saturday and Sunday, but that's just an example. Clearance and demolition, public services, which is our public services are our biggest competitive part of these applications. We do get some construction and rehab applications, but public services is the most competitive for our CDBG funding. Rehab and historic preservation activities and special economic development and planning. An overview of the home investment grants program must benefit 100% low and very low income households in the city of Montgomery. The intent of the home program is to increase supply of safe, decent and affordable housing to low and very low income households, expand the nonprofit housing providers, strengthen the ability of state and local governments to provide housing, leverage private sector participation, and some home some home eligible activities include owner occupied homeowner rehab, home buyer activities for low income buyers, rental housing, and that includes acquisition, rehab, and new construction of rental units, and our TBRA, which is tenant-based rental assistance program. And that's direct assistance to tenants for rent, security deposits, and things of that nature. So some activities for our program year 2022, rental housing, acquisition, rehab, or new construction, for-profit or nonprofit, multifamily or single-family developments. And part of our home allocation, we have to set aside at least 15% of our home funds for our CHODOs. That's our community housing development organizations. The match requirement is 12.5% of all home program activities. And a brief overview of our ESG program. The intent of the program is to help operate emergency shelters and transitional facilities for homeless people, provide essential support services to the residents, and help prevent at-risk families or individuals from becoming homeless. 5 components of the ESG program: street outreach, emergency shelter, homeless prevention, at risk or being homeless, rapid rehousing, and our homeless management information system, data collection. HMIS records all information on the homeless population. We collect that data. We have to submit separate reports to HUD with all the demographics, whether they have children or the race demographics, age, so on and so forth. Okay, so this slide lets you know what our minimum and maximum grant requests. The minimum is 25,000 and the maximum is 75,000. We will not review applications that request less than $25,000. Okay, so your minimum is 25 for public service and your max is 75. We set those limits here with the city of Montgomery. We want to allow all that can apply for our public service projects. We have a 20% cap on our admin, and 15% of our total Cdbg application is set aside for public service projects. So, when you multiply that, I think our cap last year was around 280 or 300,000 for our public services. And when you have organizations that are applying for 75,000, the max, that money doesn't go very far. That's why I said it's our most competitive application that we receive. You have to be prepared to collect income information or define street boundaries if you're serving a low mod area. Exception to collection of income is if your beneficiaries are in a presumed benefit category. Excuse me, such as homeless persons, battered spouses, abused children, elderly persons, severely disabled adults as defined by HUD. HUD has a separate definition for severely disabled adults than what you may think it is. I mean, for the most part, it is that, but they are very particular about that definition. Illiterate adults and persons living with AIDS or migrant farm workers. All those categories listed there on that bullet are presumed benefit, and you would not be required to collect income information on those presumptive groups. As I mentioned, our grant administration cap is at 20% of our total award. Consulting fees, not more than 5% of the total award. And that's your total award. If we are to award your organization, you cannot receive or dedicate more than 5% of consulting fees towards that line item. We'll get more into using consultants on projects in the application. And so for developers fees, not more than 10% of the total award, and that's for construction projects only. Home program, the grant administration amount is not more than 10% of the total award. Consulting fees, 5% of total award. Developer fee, not more than 15% of the total award. And the ESG, the grant administration, not more than 5% of the total award. Okay. If you have any questions about your project, if you are doing new construction, you need to call ahead before you turn an application to ensure the proper zoning for your project. And that number in land use, it's in our department here, is 334-625-2722. You can talk to someone and give them your address and they'll let you know what the proper zoning is for that project address. This slide is a tentative grant cycle for our 2022 year. Our public hearing is today for all 3 of our programs. The application due date is December the 6th at 2 p.m. Okay. If you mail your application in, please make sure that you mail it in early enough that it is received in our office by 2 p.m. If I were you, I would bring it in. And we have lots of organizations that bring it in. We stand down in the lobby of our building, which is at 25 Washington Avenue, and we stamp those applications in. If you come in after 2 o'clock, your application will be stamped in, but it will not be considered for funding. And that is a very strict deadline that we have. So if you're mailing your application from another part of the state or wherever your location is, please ensure that application is received by 2 p.m. on December the 6th. And then the other schedule, these schedules are also listed in individual applications. So you can just look at those and get an idea of how our schedules run. Staff will review your application and then we'll make recommendations to Desmond, who is our director, and then the mayor's office, city council. We will complete a draft action plan and put it out for public notice for 30-day comment period. And then we will submit our final plan after we've gone to city council and received resolution, meaning the approval from city council. We'll submit our plan to HUD for their review. Once HUD approves our action plan, then we notify of the grant awards and decline letters. We'll send those out in the mail. If you're going to be awarded, usually staff is in touch with you before our program year starts on May 1st to kind of give you an idea that you are being considered for funding. However, it's not final until we receive notice from HUD that our plan has been approved. Then we'll have a subrecipient workshop, and then our program year starts on May 1. We certainly hope to get back to in-person training soon, and have our subrecipient workshops in person. That's the best way to learn, in my opinion, is to be in person.
Susan, the rubber wax out. Those dates should be 2022, shouldn't they, instead of 2021?
Yes. Oh, yes, they should. Absolutely. Thank you. We'll fix that. Yeah, we're not going backwards. Yes. So our technical assistance workshop, we're considering our public hearing a technical assistance workshop. And our applications and RFPs for the home program only. Home program is the only one that will turn in a request for proposals. Our other 2 programs will have applications. And all applications and RFPs will be accepted. But if you make it, that is, if you make it in before the 2 o'clock deadline on December the 6th, the others will be stamped in and they will not be considered. Staff here will provide limited technical assistance. Maybe I should explain limited. We'll be glad to answer your questions. If you have questions of, you You may ask, what exactly does this question mean? We will tell you that we cannot give you suggestions. We cannot write your application for you. We can't even tell you, yes, that your project qualifies. You turn in your application, we'll make that decision. And like I said, we will, if you call and you have questions, we're glad to help you. Hours on the phone going over application, okay? You can start accessing our applications today and going through them. We've emailed many applications from our previous year to kind of give everyone an idea of what they look like if you did not turn in one last year. So hopefully you guys have a better understanding of what's required in the applications. For new grantees, you must demonstrate that is huge, okay? If you can't show us that you have the capacity to receive and pay bills or manage your project, you will not be funded. And they're part for the previous grantees, your application will be based in the years prior, your past performance or the way you managed the grant, your goals and objectives, were they obtained? If they were not, it's unlikely that you may be funded going forward. And your program effectiveness. If you tell us that you plan on benefiting 200 youth and you only serve 30, that's a problem. That tells us that either your program is not effective or you don't have the capacity to run the project. I won't read some of the next slides in detail because they get a little bit lengthy, but for this particular slide, as most of you know, 2 CFR Part List, all of the ones listed here in this paragraph, A21, A87, 89, 102, 110, 133. So everything is now codified into one super circular. And so within 2 CFR 200, it places more importance on the effectiveness of subrecipient management and oversight by grantees receiving funds from HUD. It places more responsibility on you guys to manage and monitor, and including performance and compliance with applicable laws and regulations. It forces the PJ to perform a stringent evaluation of the administrative and programmatic side of potential grantee before grant funds are awarded. There are lots of things that we have to do before we make a grant award. And it goes well beyond just reading and grading your application and making recommendations to the mayor and city council. Which, by the way, thank you, Councilor Graham, for attending our public hearing today. We saw that you were with us and we certainly appreciate you participating in our public hearing.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. And this is just another part of 2 CFR 200, 200.303. And the non-federal entity must ensure that there's effective internal controls over the federal board, compliance with the federal statutes and regulations, terms and conditions. And those are normally spelled out in your subrecipient agreement. And there's an evaluation mechanism to ensure compliance and the terms of your federal award. And prompt action is taken when instances of non-compliance are identified, including identified audit findings. Okay, if you have findings in your audit, you have to present to us, just like you do the CPA or the firm that does your audit. You have to give us an action plan of how you plan to correct those going forward. So be prepared if you submit audits and you have findings or concerns. We're going to ask you to address those and give us a letter of corrective action. Sorry about that. Application and on-site audits, these are some of the things that, that we must have. Your written organization policy and procedures, your organization chart, your lines of authority. We want to make sure that you have separation of duties. That is key. If you have one person that retrieves the mail, opens the mail, pays the bills, carries the debit card, that's a real problem. So if you are an organization of 1 or 2 people, grow your organization before you apply to us, okay? You have to have separation of duties. Your hiring policies, we'll look at all of these things before you're awarded. If you have competent staff, program and financial. It is very, very, very important that you have someone on your staff that can take care of the financial responsibilities with this grant, okay? Our staff has helped and tried to guide some organizations, and it's kind of a task, it seems. With all last year, we had our duties increased 5-fold. Okay, we had our regular pot of HUD funds, and we received 4 additional CARES Act pots of funds, and it was something. We're alive. That's all I can say. We worked hard in this office to get you guys these funds out there, and we know that you have worked hard with continuing during COVID. I think it was pretty stressful on all of us, but we thank you for what you've done out there, continuing your activities through COVID. We're trying to get back on track now of just running 3 programs instead of 10 pots of funds. It was something last year, but getting back to the slide, your financial audits, your articles of incorporation, procurement compliance, you have to have these things in place. And if you do not have these things in place, you need to start now, because you're going to have your board approve some of your documents before submitting an application. So time's running out, and if you don't have these things, you have to create them. Please do not go online and print personnel policies and stick them in a binder. We will know that that is not what you do, okay? Your bylaws, your active board of directors, meetings and minutes, and we'll get into that part going over our application. Board authorizations, accounting policies, insurance for the building where your project runs, your organizational bank account information, signatory authority, audits, and your IRS requirements. Programmatic evaluation and performance. This is just a list for new grantees and past grantees, and it kind of expands a little bit of what I was saying earlier for the new and past grantees. For new grantees, your administrative requirements, competent qualified personnel, your satisfactory audit report, capacity, at least 1 year or more with grant management. You'll have to show us that in your application. Again, financial capacity, audit report for past grantees, your administrative requirements, basically everything that you've done, and to stay in compliance, meeting your goals and objectives, timely reporting, how many times we have to send your invoices back or monthly reports back for corrections. All of those are taken into consideration in your application that you will turn in. Basic elements. Are we backwards?
Did we go backwards? There we go.
Yes. Okay. So this is some information about your audit reports and why it's important. A nonprofit's main focus is to carry out its mission to the best of its ability. Yet there's one thing that cannot be lost in the desire to do good. A fiduciary responsibility to its funding sources and the community to those resources prudently. Why a nonprofit might conduct an audit even when the law doesn't require it. Primary reason is to demonstrate the charitable organization's commitment to financial transparency. Potential donors may want assurance that the nonprofit, their financial practices meet acceptable standards. Many public and private foundations, funders, including governments, require charitable nonprofits to submit audited financial statements and conduct an audit in order to be eligible for funding. Conducting an independent audit is good practice, especially for board members who want assurances that their organization and the board that they represent is fiscally sound. A nonprofit can build its reputation for integrity, transparency, and professionalism by having a regular independent audit conducted and making it available to stakeholders and the public. 4 basic financial statements in your audit are your financial statements, statement of financial position, your statement of activities, statement of cash flow, and your statement of functional expenses. If you do not have an audit report, you must provide your latest financial statements and must be certified by your bookkeeper, accountant, etc. Okay, so if you put those financial statements in your binder, and you'll see in a few minutes what is going to be included in your binder, then you have to have those financial statements certified, okay? So the type of organization financial analysis performed, cursory review of the following. Date of the audit needs to be current. Please do not submit in your binder a 2013 audit. Okay, that says a lot. And please don't take out important pages like your findings and concerns. If we see your audit goes from page 14 to page 45, we know that you might be withholding some information from us, and we might call and ask you for that. So make sure that you include all of the pages in your audit if you're submitting an audit. Particularly, the first thing I flip to when I see an audit is the findings and concerns page. Okay, I want to see exactly what your auditor says about that. The completeness of your report, your value of assets, property and equipment, mortgages, your total value of other assets, concerns and findings, if you have them, and your remedies, which is your corrective action plan. Desmond normally looks at all of this part of the application. It's a lot of information to review. Other staff members, we do review the audit, but Desmond has a separate worksheet that he works up for these audits because it's his thing. He loves it. What?
You can tell them we do look at your audit.
Yes, we do look at it. And so all of these ratios on the right side of the page, thank goodness for Desmond. That's all I'm going to say because it makes my head spin. But we do evaluate them to make sure that you have enough money to, maintain your organization, make sure that you're fiscally sound. Should you ask for funding from us, that you're not just relying solely on one of our programs to float your organization. So we want to make sure that you're still going to be there in month 7 versus not making it. So our job is to help as much as we can, but we can't float your organization. Form 990 analysis. This just gives you examples of what's there. Your identity and tax status, your income received, what sources they come from, your total expenses, breakdown, net assets, initiation of new activities by the filer. Is the filer a private foundation? And most importantly, does the filer lobby? We have to have that information with any award. Next. This information is also listed in the application. So you'll see this information again when we get to the binder. And this is just a list of everything that we require. One of the important documents here are your minutes of your last 3 board meetings. They have to be signed by your executive director. So don't run out on your lunch and type up something that might look like some board meeting minutes and they're not signed. This is very important. We are looking at every single one of these documents in your binder, your bylaws, your organization chart. We kind of went over some of this earlier. Job descriptions and resume of the key personnel that will be responsible for this grant, and that's your executive director. Those are persons that are hired or might be carrying out activities on the project. Their resume and their job descriptions included. Your current board members, please make sure that you give us a copy of all your current board members. Your resume on your accounting personnel. Excuse me. Again, that's important. We want to know if you have someone in place that is going to take care of your finances. Your audit, your 990, 13-page E-Verify MOU. Please do not just send a screenshot of an E-Verify page without that 13-page MOU. We want to see that. Your signed affidavit for business entity. That document is located in the application. We'll go over that a little bit more. The very most important document that you need to have in that binder is your current agency's exclusion record or system award management, better known as your SAM document. All right. We've gotten some creative things submitted for your SAM document. If you are not active on your SAM document, you will not be considered for funding. You must be current at the time that you turn in your application. Okay, if your SAM document expires on November the 30th and you turn in your application December the 6th, you will not be considered for funding. All right, we have to have these things in place before we make an award. So it's very important. As soon as you leave today, first thing tomorrow, you need to make sure if your organization is up to date. Wait for that. Your assurances and your disbarment suspension pages, those are also located in your application. Your current insurance certificate, 3 letters of reference from persons benefiting from your agency's services, not your employees, not the city staff. These are people that actually have benefited from the services that you have provided in the past. Okay. And your ESG, if you're an ESG applicant, your written standards certification. The documents in red, if any of those documents are in a combined document, you can leave them intact as you have them with your agency. You just have to tab them out according to the number in the application. And I'll show you more about that when we get there. But some of these policies and procedures are probably all together in one of your documents, and you don't have to separate them. But the tabs don't have to be in order in your binder. Just make sure that you tab it out according to the number that's on that list, and we'll see that shortly. We've added this slide in the past couple of years to give you guys some just so you can kind of see what our goals and objectives look like. These are our 10 goals here that was submitted in our 5-year comp plan. And they look a little different than probably what you've seen in the past, but our goal outcome indicators are taken exactly like they are here from the HUD website. And going forward, that's how we're going to set our goals and objectives, just how they are in our system with HUD, public facility or infrastructure activities other than low-income housing. This could be something like paving streets in low-income areas, or roofs on community centers, that type thing. The quantity that we said we were going to benefit within a 5-year period was 2,000. To date, as of 2020, we have benefited 13,095 persons. And that's because the low income area, where if we pave a street in the low income area, the entire area, given the street boundaries, are added together for a total benefit. So that number appears to be a little high. And the reason we don't have 2021 yet, we have not turned in our year-end report because we're still in our 2021 year. So our CAPER, which is our year-end report, is due in July every year. And those numbers will, that we are benefiting this year, you'll see these numbers added to these numbers during our next public hearing for application process. So our number 2 goal, public facility, that does benefit, a housing benefit. So if we have a developer that is constructing housing for seniors or for low income, we may come behind our home program, using home program funds for construction, and use CDBG funds for sewer, curb, gutter, paving, that sort of thing. And so those numbers will appear. We have a project coming up to start our next phase over at Lanier Place. So we have some CDBG funds set aside to help with infrastructure there, and we will meet those goals and objectives on that one. So you can just see, we have our public services, rental units, constructed, rental units, rehabbed. These are all 3 program goals that you see here. So we'll meet some of these with our home program. We have some projects that are just getting set up and awarded. So those numbers will increase. Homeowner housing rehab. We have a nonprofit that manages our home rehab program. And so when those numbers start rolling in, they'll be significantly over 20, I'm sure. Our rapid rehousing, those numbers come from our ESG servicers, our homeless person overnight shelter. And some of these numbers will really increase due to the CARES Act funding that we provided or managed last year. And then jobs created and retained. Our HMIS is the database for our homeless population. So that number will increase every year. We set it at 5 because you can only do one a year. So at the end of our 5-year, we should be well on to meeting all of our goals. And then this just gives you a category of the geographic areas and the priority needs that go along with the goals and objectives. Our categories are affordable housing, that encompasses our rehab and new construction, our homeless population, and non-housing community development. Those activities on non-housing community development is everything from public services to anything that is not dealing with housing, okay? So that normally comes from our Cdbg program. And I think we have all of our areas represented geographically across the city. We have, when we construct our action plan, every single project that we have to include one of these areas. Either it's a citywide benefit or it's a particular area of the city. And then we have to assign a priority need. And that encompasses all of the eligible activities pretty much: infrastructure, homeless services, public facilities, and housing. So that kind of concludes our slideshow. If you have any questions that are going to require time, please call one of the staff members after the hearing to get more information. We don't want to tie too much of our hearing up to long and detailed questions. We don't mind answering your questions, certainly, but if you have more questions that are for a particular application or program, we just ask that you call the staff. We'll go over each section of the application and briefly take a couple of questions. But like I said, we prefer that you email us or call us so we can not hold up our public hearing.
Hello, my name is Charles, and I just want to say thank you all for a great presentation. We really enjoyed it. And is there any way we can get this? I know it was recorded, but is there any way you guys will be sending those of us that attended this copy out so we can kind of give it to our development person?
We can put this recorded presentation on our webpage, in the same place where you'll access the application, and we're also going to put the slideshow up there in case you just wanted to read it without hearing me talk all day. So we will definitely put those up. They should be up either this afternoon or first thing tomorrow, but the applications are already out there in case you want to access the application. We're going to start with our Community Development Block Grant, our Cdbg application first. Adina, I think, is showing you guys how to get to our webpage. So this is the city's webpage. Okay, you go to City Government and down to Community Development. Over on the left is a Community Development Division tab. You'll click there. And this opens you up. Our public notice that you all got through email is there in the public notice part. Our contact information there. My email is there first, Susan Hill. Gary Sharp, my CDBG partner, is there. Then Paul Van Fleet manages the home program. And then Sherry manages the ESG program. And Adina is currently helping with ESG and CDBG. So feel free to, it's best that you email the people that are responsible for the programs. You'll get a quicker response there. But if for some reason you don't get a response from others, either you can email me or someone else there in our contact list. But under each heading here, Community Development Block Grant, there's our CDBG application, our home RFP, and then our ESG application. You can see that we've listed our 5-year plan and our 1-year action plan, which is the current year that we're in, if you wanted to see what projects are currently funded. So you can just visit all of these. You can kind of see what our, what we just reported. We submitted in October our 2020 evaluation report to HUD. And that gives you an idea of how many people we served and benefited during 2020. And then all of those documents on the very bottom are our CARES Act, our notices to amend the plan, who the funds went to, that sort of thing. But so with that said, we'll go ahead and start the CDBG application. We're going to go just in that order to CDBG. Paul will maybe give a brief statement or two on the home RFP, but normally he just asked that those that are interested in applying for home funds contact him directly after the hearing. And then Sherry, anyone that wants to stick around for Emergency Solutions Grant funding can stick around for Sherry's presentation of the ESG application. Any shelter that wants to submit an application for CDBG may certainly do so. You can turn in an application for CDBG and ESG, or you can just, ESG just, they get a lot less funding than CDBG. So sometimes we have emergency shelters that turn in a CDBG application as well. And so on the first page here, due date, December 6th, 2 p.m. sharp. Our address is on the, our address is there on the bottom of the application, 25 Washington Avenue, 4th floor. Staff will be down there on December the 6th, starting around noon. If you don't see a staff person to stamp your application in on December the 6th, then our security guard person will call the staff down. If for some reason you have to come on the floor, we're on the 4th floor, but we're not really having the public come up to our floor still because of COVID. And our program year runs from May 1st next year, Okay, so these applications that you're submitting do not even start until May 1st next year. And they run through April 30th of the following year, 2023. And then make sure you put your CDBG funds requested down on your first page. I will not read all of this. You can read this pretty much on your own. Some of these things we've already gone over a little bit, but make sure you read the application submission instructions on page 2 here. Complete each box as directed. It's very important that you complete each box, each section. Anywhere there's a question, do not leave them blank. All right, if you leave them blank, you will lose points. And although the application is pointed out and for each section, you know, like the budget section is worth so many points, there are other parts of this application that can take funding points from you. The binder, if you don't submit something that's requested in the binder, that will take from your score that you already can't afford to lose points on. All right, and I'll go over some of the things that always get deduction of points from just applications in the past. The application is fillable. If for some reason you cannot, is that a PDF on our webpage? Okay. It's fillable. If something doesn't work and you can't get it to work, you need to find that out now so you can contact staff. Please do not wait until the last minute, until noon on December the 6th to call saying that you can't access something, you can't get it to work. Please do not wait till the last minute. You will not like yourself very well if you don't make that deadline and you've done all of this work prior and can't get it in to get reviewed. The font size is preset. There are boxes that have the row and height, column width that are preset. Do not change the settings, okay? Please don't send in an application where you've written in anywhere other than a signature, okay? Don't change your font down to type 8, okay? We set those for a reason. We don't need 3 pages of a history with your organization. When we say brief, we don't mean 2 words, but we don't mean 20 pages, okay? And I'll get a little bit more into that, but it's divided into 2 main sections. Specific information with questions that has designated numbering. Return your application in the order the questions are numbered, along with the attachments and where we ask for those attachments. If you do not provide the requested information, you'll see a deduction in points, okay? If something is not applicable to you, put NA in the box along with an explanation of why you do not have an answer. You may have a great reason that our question does not apply to you, but we won't know that unless you tell us. If you put NA with no explanation, it will be the same as if you don't answer it. And when you leave a place unanswered on your application, you'll get a 0 for that section, and that is not good, okay? Don't print your application front and back. You'll print them and submit them single-sided only, all right? An original plus 2 copies. When we say copies, you can submit copies of your original, your 2 copies of your original, but all 3 copies must have original signatures. That is very important for you guys to know. Please don't submit an original and have blue signatures everywhere. And then we have 2 copies from the copier with black ink signatures. You're gonna get counted off on that. And the reason we say that is because different staff reads different applications. So if I have an original and Gary has one of your copies, he's going to count off if you don't have original signatures on those pages. So that's why we make all the signature pages original signatures. Every single thing we do, blue ink, blue ink, blue ink, blue ink. All right, throw your black pens in the trash. I'm just kidding. But literally everything that we do and sign around here is in blue ink. And that was something that HUD kind of made us realize when it came down to a signature one time. So everything we do is in blue ink. Make sure your application arrives on time. Slide this. I'm sorry. And then we have our funding levels here. Oh, this is a special mouse. I'm sorry, I'm gonna give Adina back the mouse because I can't word that thing. Here you have our names and contact information. Susan Hill. My direct line is 625-2320, and Gary's direct line is 625-2065. If you need us, leave us a voicemail if we're not readily available. Emailing us is probably the best way to get to us. We're in a lot of meetings these days. And then so eligible for CDBG funds, you can just read some of these things on your own. And a lot of these things we've already gone over in the on the slideshow. So we'll kind of move forward. Let me explain a little bit about the top page here for public service. If your project is a public service, you have to disclose all sources of funding for the activity in which the CDBG funds are requested. If you are funded by our office last year and you've made your way to city council and city council members have given you extra funds, you have to disclose that to us. Because there's a provision in the regulations about using local government funds to carry out your activity. And it's very important. I've seen application after application turned in saying that they do not receive local government funding, and then go to a city council meeting and see them presenting their spiel for fundings from city council, and then they do not disclose that to us. We have to know that information on public service projects. Okay, so for public service, it has to your project has to be a new service or a quantifiable increase. And that's the quantifiable increase was set by the city of Montgomery years ago at 20%. We selected 20% because there are other entitlements that have a lot. Their quantifiable increase is much larger than that. Okay, so we felt like 20% was a good number, and that's what we stuck with. So you have to increase your level of service by 20%, however you do that. Okay, so it's up to you how you increase your level of service. And then that next section there, CDBG funds may not be used to replace local or state monies to fund essential services. All right. And so then we've already gone through some of these others. We did change the dates in the application, at least Pastor Wagstaff, as you can see. However, we did miss it somewhere else. So moving right along, will there be a verbal? Yes, we can. Dr. Bisbee, we will have a Word version. I know you have me on speed dial. You can just, or email me. I can send it. So if you want a Word version of the application or a PDF version, and somehow you can't get it from our webpage, please call or email us. We'll be glad to email it to you. Okay. This next page is our current 2021 HUD home income limits. We have the word home income limits up there. It used to be Section 8 income limits. We had to go by their income limits, but now we're home and CDBG are pretty much on the same page. And these were just revised over the summer. So if you have a public service project, an after-school program, and your beneficiary, which is the youth or the participant in the program, we will have a form that you will need to have completed by that head of household for the beneficiary, telling us what their income information is. This is just a guide to let you know what the income limits are, but we have this same information on a form that if you're awarded, you will be required to collect this information from your beneficiaries. Okay, so for instance, a 4-person household, as long as that household makes $54,100 or less, then they qualify for the activity that is funded with HUD funds. Okay, and don't worry about that too much. If you're here, that tells us that you're already serving a lot of the population that we generally serve. But we'll go more into detail about that if you're awarded. But this is just an idea of what our income limits look like. So we always go with the 80% income limit there at the bottom of this table. All right, go ahead. All right, we'll start going through this information. Please make sure you read these pages on your own to understand what is required. I've highlighted the bottom here because the budget portion, instead of having separate applications for public services and construction and rehab projects, they're all in the same application. There's just a different form that construction and rehab projects will use on the budget portion. Okay. And again, if your organization submits, let's just say 2022, how did we miss that? If your organization submits more than one application for any of the combined programs, and that should say PY 2022, sorry, I missed that too. If you submit an application for CDBG and ESG, you'll just need one binder and all the regular copies for each application included. All right, make sure they all have original signatures. Okay, go ahead. Go on to the next page. This is a list of your binder information. Please don't forget to put your organization name at the top of the page, okay? This page will go in just a 3-ring binder. And either you can put this on the outside of your binder, or this can be the first page inside of your binder. Okay, and then you'll check, is this your first submission of the capacity binder to the city, yes or no? And then are any of these tabs the first time you're submitting to the city? Okay. Your minutes down on tab 7. Please make sure they're certified by your board chairman. And again, your personnel policies, your confidentiality policy, some of these documents may be in the same policy. Just make sure you tab them out. So if you have tabs 1 through 8, it's possible that your next tab is going to be 13 and the next tab is going to be 9, and that, you know, so on and so forth. That's fine if they're like that. Just let us know which tab in your policy that we can find your personnel policy or your non-discrimination policy. These things are required by HUD. Okay, so we have to ensure that that you have them before we make awards. Your resumes, your audit, your 990, your SAM document. Please, I can't stress enough, you guys, to make sure that your SAM is current. Okay, it's the simplest, quickest thing to do, but it'll be the quickest thing that will get you a no fund from this office. Okay, and then your 3 letters of reference there is your last tab. If you answer yes to any of the tabs here, you have to give an explanation about the change and location in the document changes can be found. And we say that because the ones that are funded, we put your binder and your application in our file, and that's what we go by when we manage your project. Okay, just don't forget to put your organization name there at the top. 3-ring binder, that page on the outside or the first page, and then all of your documents tabbed out. Okay, and then here's some more information of how to get your SAM, to understand if your SAM document and certification is active and current. All right, beta.sam.gov. I think they may have changed that recently, and it may just be sam.gov. Wait. All right, so we have assurances here. These first documents are going to actually go in your binders, okay? Please make sure you put the right assurance, the correct assurance in your binder. There's one for non-construction, as you see here at the top, and there's one for construction. If you're a public service, you're gonna be a non-construction program. You don't need to sign the construction, just leave it out altogether. Same goes for construction and rehab. If you're construction and rehab, you won't include this one, but scroll down, Adina, you'll see the next, and this is a 2-page certification too, okay? So your public services, these first 2 pages, and then go down, next page. This one is the same, it's an assurance, it has different language in it, but it's for your construction programs. So pick whichever one pertains to your program and include it in your binder. Again, these documents go in your binder, sign and date in blue ink. Oh, wait. Oh, that's the second page, isn't it? Okay, oh no, yeah, okay, this page. I've gone and tried to space this out a little bit because y'all, some of our folks are checking the wrong ones on R and R not on number 1. The proposer certifies to the best of his knowledge and belief that the proposer and any of its principles either are or are not debarred. Okay, so the first parentheses there are, the second are not. Try to space them out a little bit because it did look a little wonky at times, and I think people were confused and checking the wrong box. So, and then make sure you sign and date in blue ink. Okay, this is your Beeson-Hammond Act statement. You'll just fill that in there and sign. Used to, this form had to be notarized, but we do not notarize this form any longer. It's just signed there. And then again, this is your E-Verify and SAM government. All of these first pages here that talk about these documents, all of them are going in your binder. All right, and it'll say at the top that it's place this document at the appropriate tab in your organizational capacity binder. All right. You can keep going. This is the first page of your application. All right, this is the page that will get stamped in when you bring it here for us or mail it here for us to for submission. So this is just your general agency information. Please make sure you do not leave anything blank, because while this section is not included, does not have points attached to it. If you leave something blank here, you're going to lose some points. And you really don't have any points that you can afford to lose, because the other questions in the main part of your application are already pointed out to 100 points. You have to score at least an 80 and above to be considered for funding. All right, so you'll just make sure everything is completed here. And I won't go over all of these things because it's basically asking for your banking information, who's responsible for your financial capacity, and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna try to get this mouse to work.
You just messed it up.
Did it? Did I? Sorry, you guys, bear with me. I totally messed it up. Where am I? Okay, I'm back on track. I'm sorry. Close your eyes for a minute because I'm getting dizzy myself. Never mind. Oh, okay. I'm trying to get it together here. The mouse is not cooperating. Question 17 here on page 20. Describe your experience with federal, state, local, and other funding grants. Okay. Please don't just list them. We want to tell you if you've, if you've applied for some here, like your funding agency, the award date and the dollar amount. We want to know what your experience is with these grants. Okay. Whatever it is you need to tell us here, but don't just put a grant here and then leave it. It doesn't tell us how long ago it was, what your experience was with that grant, so on and so forth. Question 18 is for the grants that you are currently managing. The funding, you'll name your funding agency, whether it's state, federal, local, whatever the funding source is, the award date, your award date, if this is for currently managing, not anything that is pending. And then your dollar amount of the award of the grant. Section 2, please check the box that is appropriate for your project. Public services is here. If you have public facilities and improvements, acquisition of property, rehab, historic preservation, so on and so forth. Okay, housing rehab goes right here. So be sure and check one of these boxes here. Do not leave this section unattended, economic development or other. If it's other, then you'll just type an explanation over here in this green space. I can't tell you the people that have left this block blank. Number 2, the amount of your CDBG funds requested. Make sure that you complete that box. Describe your the program that you are asking for CDBG funds. Okay. Briefly describe, but not a one sentence. I saw a lot of returning applications with one sentence here in this box. Please tell us more than that. Okay, you have to let us know what kind of program you're going to run before you get the CDBG funds. Is your agency applying for more than one CDBG grant during this funding cycle? If you're turning in 2 CDBG applications, yes. Okay, we want to know what other application you're applying for. The same reader may not pick up both applications. So we'll have the description for this project, and you'll need to describe your other project here. That's only if it's CDBG, not ESG and CDBG, okay? Has your agency been awarded by the department in the past? If it's yes, complete the funding table below for the last 5 awards received. In 2015, you would put 2015 here, and let us know if you got CDBG and ESG. There's some examples here. You could put the year and what program you were funded under. It may just be CDBG, or it may be CDBG and ESG. So this example right here is what you need to, how you need to fill that table out. Okay. And then your amounts of awards. Describe the population your agency will be serving. Okay, are you serving elderly? Are you serving, you may not be serving a presumptive group, which is the elderly or the battered and abused spouses or persons living with AIDS, things like that. You may just be serving the low income population, but we want to know how your agency has been serving, how your agency will serve that population with the funds requested in this application. Okay. Section 7, please make sure that you check one of these boxes here. If you have a project that is only going to serve Counselor Graham's district, I'm using you, Counselor Graham, since you're in attendance, you will check the District 4 box. You may be serving a population that comes from all over the city. In that case, you will check this box here. I'm sorry. Your project serves all council districts. That's considered a citywide project. You'll check this box here, okay? Most of our projects are citywide projects, and they do not benefit just one district or area, all right? And then you'll have your signatures here, your board president printed name, all blue ink, please. All right. Section 1, brief summary of your proposed program and the need for this project in the city of Montgomery. Explain your increases in services, if any, your organization currently provides. Describe what types of activities will be conducted within your proposed project, and describe the population that will benefit from your program. Okay, all of that information in block 1. In 2, describe your community needs or issues your proposed project are designed to address. Does your organization provide services that benefit clients who are not currently being served? If they're underserved. Okay, if you have a project that, I don't know too many organizations that specifically deal with housing of persons with AIDS in Montgomery. That's just an example that if that's something that you want to do, then you could complete this block and tell us, hey, you know, we're one of the very few that will be offering these services for that population. That's just an example. So that it could pertain to your project in any way, but if you're currently being served, underserved, you may know of a population that just can't get health insurance for some reason. Just an example. So you'll describe that there and briefly describe your organization's experience with implementing the proposed project or program. All right. If this is something brand new that you're just trying this year, we want to know that. If you have experience with this project, we want to know that. Tell us what your organization's experience is with it. And then number 4, describe the service area of the proposed project. Provide statistical data with accompanying sources. Place a map of the proposed program target area behind this page. If you are serving many client or many beneficiaries across the city and it's considered a citywide project, then just put a map behind this page, directly behind this page, with the location of your organization. If you have an organization like Boys and Girls Club that benefits the Chisholm Club and the West End Club, you'll attach a map with both those locations identified on a map. They can be, just place them both on the same map and let us know what the area is. But we want to have the service area, okay? Just using that as an example, if you have a project that you want to do in the Chisholm area, but you will make it available for Brookview, Park Manor, Sheridan Heights, Newtown, Chisholm, Garden Square, all that area, you'll let us know that, hey, we have this project, we're going to be housed in Chisholm, but we're going to benefit all of these other areas, all these other neighborhoods. And you'll just list that kind of information here in number 4. In this section, you will tell us what your goals and objectives are. Sorry, I didn't give the point for section 1, but you can scroll back up and see what the points are for that section. The sections that have the most point counts are your budget, okay? And then section 2 is worth 15 points. It'll say up here in this area, okay? Describe your organization's goals and objectives for the proposed activity. Please understand the definition of goals and objectives. We get all sorts of creative things. A goal is a broad overall statement that illustrates what you're trying to accomplish. Objectives are measurable, time specific, and they help you achieve the goal. Okay, so if you give us an objective for your goal, let us know when these things might be achieved. Okay, they're time specific if they are either running for 30 days or you're offering it for summer months, or you hope to achieve your numbers in calendar month 10 of your project. You need to make sure that your objectives are measurable and time specific, or that you may be, you may have a goal that is 50% or 90% of your beneficiaries that you're offering that one task to. So just make sure that you pay attention to that section. Number 6, describe your organizations or other organizations that you will partner with for the implementation of this project. Attach letters of support from these organizations. If you list an organization here that you plan on working with for this project, please make sure you attach a letter of support, because if you mention them in this block here, in block 6, and you don't have a letter of support, it's going to be counted off. Okay. Maybe they don't know that you're going to work with them yet. I don't know, but just make sure that you attach the letter. All right. And number 7, this is a list of your key staff members that's responsible for implementing and administering your proposed project. That person's name, their position, their years of experience, their education attainment, and hours dedicated to the CDBG project. Just the CDBG project. So if you have an executive director there in row A, your person's name, their executive director, how many years experience. We know that 100% of their time is not going to be dedicated to the CDBG project. It might be 5%. It's not even going to be 50%, okay? Because we know that your organization is going to do other things. That your executive director and your finance person, your bookkeeper, those type people. You will have staff that's dedicated 100% of the time that either you already have on staff or that you anticipate hiring. But we know that your executive director in those positions will not be 100%. All right. Section 3 is your accomplishments. This section is worth 25 points. You will either, there are 3 national objectives, like we mentioned earlier. We left one of them off because in the event that we have a disaster or a catastrophe, that will probably be a separate application anyway, but typically your project is going to either benefit low and moderate income persons or prevent or eliminate slums and blight. And whether it's a citywide project or an area benefit, it's most likely going to be this box here. Okay. Please do not forget to fill out this section. Objective and outcome. Okay, who has me on already yet? I'm getting some feedback. Your objective and outcome, you will have one objective, one outcome. Please don't check all 3 of those, all 3 of those boxes, okay? You'll have one on each column there, right? And so, going down to the next page, and these are some examples of your objectives and outcomes. It'll help you understand which box to check here. Okay, so just make sure that you read those. Here's the group of presumptive benefit. All right. Here's another mistake that people make. I'm getting some feedback again. Who is it? Oh.
If everyone can make sure that they're muting their mics, please.
Please make sure you mute your mics because I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm going to start muting all of you. No, just kidding. Okay, so for number 10 here, you will not, if you have a project where you might see these populations over here, please do not check every box. You will be counted off this time. It's okay to see if you have, for instance, if you have if you're providing health services and you know that you'll see each and every one of these populations here, you're not going to check every box. It's going to be a citywide benefit. These boxes here are if you are only going to benefit elderly persons, senior citizens like McCoa, where they deliver meals to senior citizens. They're going to have a presumed benefit because if I'm not mistaken, all of their services will benefit the elderly people. So you're not going to benefit it's going to be one of these groups or none of these groups, okay? But if you have a presumptive benefit, you will just check that box. It's okay if you don't have one. You can just write NA over here in this green space. We'll know that you're benefiting all sorts of beneficiaries, okay? Number 11, and this again goes to your city of Montgomery and your non-residents of how many residents or how many clients you served with this project, what the percentage of low income of this number, okay? And then you'll do that for 3 years. So your 2019, 2020, and 2021 year, which is the current year that we're in. You can just put whatever number that you're currently at for this year. You'll have the city of Montgomery. You'll have your non-residents. These are probably from other counties that you serve and what the total is, but we certainly want to know how many of those are city of Montgomery residents, okay? Sorry, my mouse is running wild. This page has changed from last year. It's got some of the same information, how many, what your projected number of beneficiaries are, your number of beneficiaries to be served with CDBG funds. You may have 500 people in Block A and 200 in Block B. That's fine. And what the percentage of the CDBG beneficiaries are that are low income. The project addresses. This is the project where your activity will take place. It may take place at the same place your organization is located. It may not, okay? But this is project address only here. And it can be one or it can be several. If you have an activity that you're offering to 4 or 5 elementary schools within the city limits of Montgomery, you'll list each school and their address here. Indicate the benefit of the proposed project below. LMC is limited clientele, and limited clientele is going to give you a citywide benefit. LMA is low mod area. This is based on north, south, east, west street boundaries of your proposed project. I'll use Boys and Girls Club as an example. They have, again, they have a club in Chisholm and one in West End. They both have different north, south, east, west street boundaries, okay? So you'll list a north, south, east, west on each area. But if you check the limited clientele box, you will be required, if you're funded, to collect the income forms on all of your beneficiaries, okay? And if you need further explanation of that, you can call me after today and I'll be glad to explain that further. And this is your performance measurement table. Here are examples, again, of all 3 columns, all right? Make sure that you put an activity, indicator, and outcome that describes your program. In the space provided below, I need to get this over here. Describe how you will monitor and evaluate the project and program for your program success. Describe what tools you will use to evaluate the program. Don't just tell me you're going to hire a consultant and be done with it. All right. We want to know how you're going to monitor and evaluate that program. Budget. This first page is for public service projects only. This section is worth 20 points, okay? Your agency name here, your project name here, it may be the same. It can be different. You tell us, all right? You have your column for CDBG, your other sources, and total project costs. Please, 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 please do not use cents. Round your numbers up or down. The only time your numbers have to be exact is when you're turning in an invoice to Brenda Brown. And if it's not exact, she'll let you know. Right, Brenda?
Yes.
So in your application, or in your, even if you're awarded in your agreement, we're still going to round numbers. I can tell you, if you put cents on this budget, I'm counting off. Right away, you're gonna be counted off, because, I don't know, calculators and Excel spreadsheets. Please, if you use an Excel spreadsheet to add something, you better make sure that you use a calculator to verify those numbers, because an Excel spreadsheet is going to be off.
Amen to that.
That was my friend Cedric from Step Foundation. Cedric and I just had this conversation not long ago. Okay, so please don't, if you can use an Excel, I don't care what you use, you can write them down with a pencil and add them up in your head, I don't care. But if it does not add up on my calculator tape to be what you think it is going to be counted off, okay? These are some examples of line items over here in the green. If anything needs to be changed, you can change them down here at like number 16 for other. If you think that there's something that we've not provided, but don't just check other and put an amount here. We need to know exactly what this is. So just please triple check your budgets. The budgets are the biggest point deductors in this application. There are some other things that are some very minor things that take from your score. Just please don't leave anything blank. So if you're a public service, you will include page 32, and this is what I was saying at the beginning with the highlighted paper. I'm on the highlighted page 32, and you will include 34 for construction and rehab projects only. You will not use page 32. You will use this page. All right, and 34. Everything should. Our line items are pretty broad there, so feel free to use what we have. But on your budget justification, you have to spell it out. If you put $5,000 in a line item, you have to tell us how you come up with that $5,000 figure. All right. If you're including utilities or rent or anything else that requires you to percentage the square footage out, you're going to use the same percentage that is dedicated to this project in your salaries. The same goes for configuring your rent. If 20% of your time is spent on this project, then you're not going to request for 50% of your rent or 100% of your utilities, okay? That could get into a little bit more detail that I'm not going to spend time in the hearing doing. Call us if you have any questions about that. But make sure that your salaries are identified with the time spent. If your director spends 5% of the time on Cdbg activity, please don't ask for 20% of her pay in the budget. We have checkpoints in the application, so they all have to match. 5% dedicated to the project, they get 5% pay if you put them in the budget. I want to touch base a little bit on consultants. Just make sure please don't consult all of your work out. I know that organizations have to use consultants. That's great, fine, and wonderful, because we know that there are great and very knowledgeable consultants out there. But just a warning, if you are hiring a financial consultant and you have a finance director, that's a problem. All right. If you hire an evaluation consultant and you have someone on your team that can do the evaluation, that's a problem, because HUD is cracking down on procurement. And so if you have consultants and they have a lot of time dedicated in the budget towards your project, it's probably easier to do one of two things. Either you pay for the consultant on your own and let us take the salaries that are that are tied to this project, or it's probably easier for you to have your consultant come on as a temporary employee. Because you're going to be required to put out RFQs for consultants. It's just, it's getting tight out there in HUD's world, and I'm sure with other agencies too. The procurement is going to be heavily monitored. So you might want to think about that before you complete your budgets. We don't have a problem either way. It's just that the way that you approve of how you get your consultants is going to be a lot of heartburn for you going forward. Okay. And that's only if you're awarded. We can direct you further on that should you become awarded, but just make sure that all of your budget line items are justified here. Tell us exactly how you come up with your figures. Now this section is a little bit different from the other one where we asked you to describe your grant management experience on projects that you're currently managing. These are those that if you're putting in awards and you anticipate an award or it's pending, these are where those these are where those awards will go. All right. So please read this block here at 17. Other sources of funding for the organization's proposed project in the space below is where you'll list them. Provide documentation and proof of other funding sources, your letters of commitment, etc., for each pending award. If your organization has an award pending or an award or pending award, and you have no documentation, proof, letter of commitment, you must include a notarized declaration of authenticity from your board of directors and your CEO, and insert those documents behind this page. Use one letter for all pending sources if you have to do it that way. But if you list that you have an award with, I don't know, DHHS, I'm going to use that as an example. You'll put your anticipated award date, the funds available, and if it's actual or projected. If you don't have an award date, but you've gotten some kind of notification from the agency saying that you're going to get an award, then you'll just put pending there. But if you don't have a letter from the agency, you must have this letter that's notarized by your board of directors and CEO. We've gotten some clever things in the past, trust me. And then we're expecting that these organizations are going to be able to carry their project forward, and they wind up giving back 50 and 60,000 of the 75,000 that we awarded them simply because they can't manage the project, and we do not want that to happen. And then our last page here is your timeline. You'll list your tasks and activities over here on the left, and check which month you anticipate that task and activity to come about. This one page alone is worth 5 points. So you may have several activities that have all months or 1 month or no month, I don't know. But just make sure that you complete that timeline. All right. Is everybody good? No questions? Isn't that great? We'll move on. Paul, if you want to say a few inspiring words about the home program. I don't know, here you.
I got this.
Yeah, I just want to say that, of course, home, every dollar of home money that we award has to either directly or indirectly develop housing that's affordable for low-income families. As opposed to with Cdbg and Esg, it's low to moderate income. With home, it's low or very low income families. And for that, it's almost always construction. So we're putting out an RFP rather than a typical grant application. And I do want to point out something on page 9 of the RFP real quickly, and then you don't have to all turn to it, but we're going to show you on the screen here real quick. Home program match is not a requirement, as it is in some of the other programs. Although I apologize, there's a faux pas in this here. Want to change the under selection criteria number 4, where it says matching for 5 points. We're going to redistribute those 5 points among 1, 2, and 3, I think it is. And the 5 points for matching will be extra points. So you can still, we encourage you to go for extra points there on match if you want to. Also, this year, we're going to be pushing, we hope to get proposals that include options for structural insulated panels, building construction design. So please, if you're not familiar with SIPS, look at the website there. I believe it's sips.org, sips.org, and see what you think. We're excited about it. We've been studying this for several years, and we'd like to strongly encourage at least getting some proposals with options for that. Doesn't mean that you're going to have to use it, but we want to begin to get everybody encouraged about looking at this new technology. And that's all I have, really.
Okay, and so next we'll have Sherry Lusby presenting the ESG application, and take it away.
So most of the, the good part about ESG and Cdbg is we have basically the same format of the application, but on the we're not going to go through the first part or the let me scroll down just so I'm sorry. Yeah, the first part is basically the same with the same dates. We are still due on the December the 6th by 2 o'clock. We're going to go to page 7, where we have the list of documents that have to be put in the binder. We have added tab 13 for a drug-free workplace. That's that Drug-Free Workplace Act of 1988. We need to know your policies and procedures for this. And also tab 27, the ESG written standard certification. That's an addition. Cdbg doesn't have that, but ESG does. Moving along, the ESG application part 2. These are all your assurances. They're basically the same that we just talked about with Cdbg, but we also have the number 6 has an ESG written standards certification. I know there are some new people out there, so if I don't cover something that you don't understand, please email me or call me. I just hate to go through every line when we just did most of that. And then part 3, the ESG application, the general agency information. You've got section 1. Keep going right there. This is the start of your application for ESG. So all of your general agency information, all the bank account, the agency director, all of this stuff needs to be filled in the same as on the other applications. Your banking account, procurement, all of your different things that, are pertinent to your organization. It just keeps going with your activities. In ESG, you have to pick one of the 5 different funding components. HMIS even though you're required in ESG to be a participant in HMIS, we normally just have the one HMIS provider. Other than that, you've got street outreach. If you're going to do an emergency shelter, You also have an emergency shelter, essential services, the homeless prevention, and rapid rehousing. The other thing that was different in the slideshow that I didn't even catch either, instead of a 5% cap on the administrative, in ESG, it changed to 7.5%. So that was something I totally missed too. So.
I thought it was 7.5.
When you keep going, it's asking you if you are applying for a CDBG also. So if you are, just, briefly describe the program requested amount. And if you've been funded, this is where you're going to put in the years, the amounts, describe the population that you'll be serving. If it's a emergency shelter, they want to know about the facility. Do you own it? Do you lease it? If it's leased, the terms of your lease, and attach a lease to to this document. Some of the questions are similar, and I was watching a thing the other day. When you're answering these questions, the lady had a good point. Treat each question like no one's read it before or after this application. So make sure, even if they're similar, that you're completing the answer for that particular question, even though you think you might have answered it on page 4 in a different question. That same reader may not have read that page, and no one's going to carry that information in their head for the next question. Sorry, we're all showing our age, or some of us are, so we don't remember. And the same thing, if this is faith-based, explain your faith-based affiliations. So your activities, if they are in ESG, you can't require, like if you're going to serve lunch, you can't make people listen to the service prior to. Now they're welcome to join in if they want to, but you can't require that. So just briefly describe what your faith-based activities are. You check, which district you're serving. If you're serving all, you do the last box. And here again, print and sign in blue ink. I had to throw my black pens away too, so I like black too. The last part of this is your funding instructions. It has your program descriptions, the service plan, and then all the different components. Now with HMIS, you're going to have category E, and you're only going to fill that out. That's just for HMIS, the components. So even though street outreach and emergency shelter are all required to put their data in HMIS, you're not required to fill it out. And I'm not going to go through each question of these, but there again, here's the questions I was talking about. Some of these are similar in the different parts. So just make sure that you're answering completely that question for that answer. It's just basically whatever program you're going to be applying for, that's the section that you're going to fill out. And please, you don't have to write a book, but make sure that it's more than just a phrase. We're going to feed people. Well, we want to know who you're going to feed and when you're going to feed them, and just so we understand your program, especially if it's a new program. We were really excited about the new people too. So we love our programs. And that's it, just going to keep going on with the different questions. Does anybody have a question you want to put in the chat? I don't think there's anything here that's not self-explanatory, except when you get back here on section 4, where you have your goals and objectives. Sorry, I went way ahead of you.
We're getting there.
I know it. Sorry.
There we go.
Okay. I know, I just didn't read it all. So with your goals and objectives, you're going to explain them here. On the next page, your project budget, please make sure you just use dollar amounts and not cents here also. And then on the, which is really important on the next page, is the budget justification. I gotta get a drink, I'm sorry.
I know.
My mouth is so dry.
Make sure they identify.
Thank you, I knew I was gonna miss it.
And then what is it?
Yeah. In your, in ESG, where it's not like, let's go back to budget for a second. Yes, okay. So in ESG, you have to match, you have to have your match amounts also. Dollar per dollar for what you're asking for with ESG funding.
And then the third column, both of those. This is Brenda Brown.
Yeah, go
speaking. How
ahead.
is everybody doing? I'm gonna explain this budget. part
Please, go
pertaining
right
to the
ahead. Yes.
match. If you're asking for $20,000 for salaries, you have to match the next column with $20,000. You have to provide the match. Those two columns will total up to the third column, and it'll total up to $40,000. And it has to add up. Everything doubles when it's pertaining to match. So scroll down a little bit, Dina, please. Let me get up there because I'm blind back. So when you go to your total amount for 17, your first column will have 20,000, your second column will have 20,000, and your third column will total up to 40,000. That's just for salaries. That's just one line item that I'm using as an example. Okay, here.
Okay, no, perfect. I forget all about the match, even though that's kind of a biggie. So in your budget justification, you're going to do the match corresponding to the budget expense category. So whatever you're going to use for salaries as your match, you're going to put that and complete that in the justification. The one thing that's really important is if you do the salaries, say you do $20,000 in salaries, you need to break that down. You can't just say, I want $50,000 in salaries and not tell us how you got to that. If that's paying 5 people, certain number of dollars per hours, whatever that is, just break it down so we'll know what that's for. Same thing with the equipment and supplies. Just give us a brief description of what kind of supplies, and you know, if you want $10,000 in supplies, just kind of tell us what you want it for. That kind of,
A good generic description.
yes. And then in 5B, the project match dollars. So this is your description of the match. If you're using volunteer hours or
In-kind, volunteer.
in-kind match, any kind of,
Salaries.
and the salaries. And cash, yeah. So any kind of item that you're, I know he threw in the cash. This is where you're gonna put your match source and then the total amount of match. And then on the last page is your timeline for the program. Again, it starts May 1st of next year and then through April 30th of 23. You know, you may be doing the same task or activity the whole year. So whatever that is, or if you have 5 activities, just let us know about what that is. And I know that was pretty quick, but honestly, if you have any questions, you know, we're here every day, so. Anything else?
Nope.
I don't see any questions. No, everybody asleep.
Okay, that wraps up our public hearing for our program year 2022. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for all that you do in the communities with serving the residents and the citizens of Montgomery. We appreciate all you do. Thank you for all that you've done during COVID. If you'll put our contact information back up on the screen. Please make sure that you've commented in the chat box, your name and organization that's represented, so we can make sure that you're counted for our public hearing today. And Adina here is going to put our contact information back up on the screen for those that want to jot that down right quick if you need to. My email address there is smartin-bowen@montgomeryal.gov. Gary Sharp is gsharp@montgomeryal.gov. Sherry with Emergency Shelter Grant Program is, or Solutions, I'm sorry, it's changed from Shelter to Solutions. It's SLUSBY, @montgomeryal.gov. And then Paul Van Fleet of the Home Program, pvanfleet@montgomeryal.gov. So thanks again for joining us and contact us if you have any questions. Thank you.
Is it all? 'Cause I'm 10.